Hi everyone, and welcome to a really quick instructional video regarding RDAA's new Commonwealth Financial Support Calculator. You'll find the calculator under our resource section on our website. So website address, rdaa.com.au. If you just hover on resources, click on Commonwealth Financial Support Calculator, it will take you to a landing page. Now, you don't need to be a member to access the calculator, but you will need to create an account if you aren't already a member or haven't previously accessed an online service with RDAA or your state RDAA previously. So for RDAA members, you can just sign in as you normally would. For other people, you again might need to create an account. So just click here for the calculator. Here you sign in, and we will just use a test sign in so you don't get my password. So if you need to create the account, click on there, but just to sign in, you can sign in. And once you create your account, you'll automatically be taken to the page as well. And this is the page. So there are some important tips that we would like you to draw your attention to. So first of all, the calculator is a guide only, and individual doctors will need to make sure they meet the eligibility criteria and complete any required activities to receive the benefits or the financial incentives that are outlined in the calculator. When using the calculator, if you want to change your scenario, please always refresh the calculator in between uses. It just will mean that your results are more accurate. As mentioned, you're responsible for working out your eligibility. In the calculator, there is a question regarding the number of days you work in primary care. Now, various programs have different requirements for the number of days. Some are averaged, like the help debt, where you need to be working in general practice 3 days a week to be eligible. Others, like the rural advanced skills, you can do a day a week if you're part-time, or 2 or 3 days a week, or you could do it in a full block. And that's about having some flexibility to support locum or workforce that may do their procedural work or advanced skill work in a block rotation. So the department has tried to make it as flexible as possible. So the question will ask you how many days in a year. So if normally it's 3 days that you per week that you have to work in general practice, like the help debt, that'd be 144 days. So let's have a look. On the left-hand side, there is a series of questions for doctors or potential doctors to answer. So what is your modified Monash? Now, if you don't know what modified Monash is, it is a geographical rating of all the communities in Australia. So RDAA consider real rural modified Monash 3 to 7. So we're obviously focused on that. And we're hoping that this will give you an idea of the range of incentives, particularly available in those communities. So what is your modified Monash? How long was your medical degree? The amount of your help debt. We have flagged with the department, they need to work out a mechanism to make that element of the medical degree element of your help debt more accessible. For people who've done medicine as an undergraduate, that's easy. For people who've done it for as postgraduate, it's a little bit more complicated. So I'll run you through a quick scenario. So let's imagine you're a new or a pre-vocational doctor looking to work in general practice in modified Monash 6. You trained at JCU, so 6 years post-grad. We'll say you've got a $20,000 help debt. You're looking at going into general practice training or rural generalist training. So we'll pick rural generalist training on the AGPT, on the Australian General Practice Training Program. So we'll pick RACGP, we'll pick AGPT. And then how many days a week will you work in primary care? We'll do the scenario that this person is actually a rural generalist trainee. So they have their advanced skill. We'll pretend it's anaesthetics, but they're going to be working full time. So they'll work 3 days a week in general practice, 1 day a week doing an anaesthetic list, and then let's roster them because there's never too much that they could do, 1 day a week in emergency. So they'd be doing 144 days in a year for primary care. Do they have an advanced skill? Yes. Which one is it? And they're all here, including RACGP's new small town rural general practice. So how many days a week do you work? We'll say 1 day a week. Now, again, this is based on the various eligibility criteria for different programs. So it's important that you are accurate in what you're doing there to give you the best guide. Do you do emergency? Now, for procedural grants, there's 2 types of emergency care. You can do medical or mental health or both, and that will be adjusted based on your answers. And how many shifts do you do? So we're saying they'll do 1 day a week in emergency. Once you've answered your questions and you've got all your answers, you hit the submit button, and you will have to do a bit of scrolling because there's a lot of information in this document. And then basically what we've got here is a range of programs that the Commonwealth support and finance or money that's associated with those. So we've got the rural procedural grants. So remembering this person has an advanced skill in anaesthetics, and they also do emergency. So they're credentialed in emergency. So this is the procedural grant. You will have to apply to your college to access that. But it's based on $2,000 a day for surgery, anaesthetics, and obstetrics. That's up to 10 days, so $20,000 per annum. And then it's $2,000 a day for emergency, and that's for 3 days. So that's where you get the $26,000. If you don't access your full entitlement of days, that will be reduced. Your registrar payments, so we've said this person is a registrar and on the AGPT program. So there are 2 term payments per year. So we've totaled them up to give you a full year allocation if you stay in the same location. If you move locations, and particularly different modified Monash ratings, that will change. Then we've got our WIP doctor stream. And again, this is based on rurality. And as you can see, the longer you're in this community, the more money you'll get. And then we've got the very new Workforce Incentive Program Rural Advanced Skill Payment. And there's 2 streams for this. There's the emergency stream and also your advanced skill. And that's not just the procedural advanced skills, that's all the advanced skills. So for this doctor, a registrar on the Rural Generalist Training Program with RACGP who already has their advanced skill, this would be a guide to the amount of money you may be eligible for. Now, I'll give you, before I run through another scenario, I'll just scroll down a little bit. We have provided links to all the programs that are included in the calculator. So there's a little bit of advice and guidance here, but it really is important that you click on each of the links and understand the full scope, eligibility criteria, and activity requirements for each of these programs. We have tried to build it into the calculator, but it is really important that you also understand the full detail. In addition to the incentives that are in the calculator, it's like a good advert, but wait, there's more. There are additional scholarships, bursaries, and payments that aren't currently included in the calculator. So as I mentioned, we included the AGPT registrar payment in the calculator, but we haven't included the payments for the practices or the supervisors under the nationally consistent payment framework. The reason for that is that those payments for the practices obviously go to the practices, and can be distributed in a number of ways. The payments for supervisors, there are different arrangements depending on the practice. So we've left them out. Some payments go directly to the supervisor. Other payments are given to the practice to be distributed to the supervisor. But there is a link there for you to find out exactly how much. In addition to that, under AGPT, there are additional payments through flexible funds, and those payments can be directed to registrars, supervisors, or practices. And each college, RACGP and ACRM, have a slightly different approach in the way those funds are allocated. So it is important, depending on which college you're providing services for, that you actually get the detail of how those funds are distributed and allocated. We've then got our rural workforce agencies who've got a long history of providing bursaries and scholarships for rural doctors and other rural health professionals. So there are links there. Our regional training hubs are here. And then there are payments tied up in the practice incentive program, which are generally directed to the practice, but some of those payments include a portion to be allocated to individual doctors. So again, it's important to understand what's in scope for that program and what's not. And then we've got the My Medicare link here as well, which is very, very new. And there are more incentives or payments being added to that. And certainly we've had the first sort of phase, but we're quickly moving into phase 2. So aged care will soon be part of that program. So again, there will be payments for practices and payments for individual doctors. So it will be important for you to understand exactly what's in scope for that program. And then we've got, for the non-GP specialists, a link there in relation to some of the CPD support. Not a lot of support there for our non-GP specialists, something for RDAA to work on. So let's go to a new scenario. Refresh the calculator. We might do a scenario this time for a senior doctor, and this might be a good way for practices to think about how they might be advertising for a fellow doctor to work in their practice. So let's do my old town where I used to work in Kingaroy. So we'll say 6 years, but you're looking for a senior doctor and they've paid off all their help debt and HECS debt. So we'll say they're not a registrar. So here we will be looking for a fellow, so someone who is vocationally registered. We will be looking that they work in primary care 144 days, so at least 3 days a week. But, you know, we're keen for them to have an advanced skill as well. Now, we will choose something a little bit different. So let's go pediatrics and child health. Select how many days. We'll say they'll do 1 day a week. But they also do 1 day a week still in emergency. Now, as you can see, this person has no help debt. Their rural grants are for the emergency only because rural grants apply to procedural practice at the moment. That may change in the future, but for the moment, they're not a registrar, so there's no registrar payments. We do see the WIP doctor stream come into play in Modified Monash 4. And also the rural advanced skill payments. So remembering they're doing emergency, so they're getting that payment, and they've also got their advanced skills and providing services in their advanced skill area, which is pediatrics. So for this doctor, over time, their incentive will grow, but in the first year, in addition to all their Medicare billing or their salary, whatever the arrangement may be, they would be eligible for $25,000. And that will increase over time as the WIP doctor stream increases as well. So these are accurate for a point in time, remembering the rural advanced skill payment is funded for 2 years, And after that, it will be reviewed. So we will update this. If these amounts are to change going forward, we will change that going forward. But for now, we're hopeful that it'll be very successful and be maintained. So we live in hope. So that's an example of maybe a more senior doctor looking to move to a rural area. And again, it might be useful for the practices when they're recruiting and doing their job adverts to include, information about their eligibility for a range of these incentives as part of the job description or part of the advert. So it's just something to think about. I will do something here for a non-VR doctor, because we have a lot of non-VR doctors working in our rural and remote communities. So I'll say they're going to MMM6, so a remote location. Their medical degree may have been 5 years, but have no help debt. We'll do it for an overseas trained doctor, and one not yet on a training program. So the answer would be no here, that they're vocationally registered. We'll still say they work 3 days a week in primary care. As you can see here, the only incentive they're eligible for is the WIP doctor stream. And as a non-VR doctor, their WIP doctor stream is 80% of the full amount. So we have included that adjustment in these calculations. So we have tried to address all the different scenarios and the way all the different payments or financial supports interact based on your qualifications, years of practice or how long you're in the community for, as well as your medical degree, whether you're a registrar. So we've tried to ensure that we've covered every scenario in all of our calculations, and we hope that you find this tool useful. And thank you. And please send us your feedback at any time. Thank you very much.